Welcome to Death on Clear Island, Chapter 12. What's the bag for? I asked Peter as I glided across the seat into his car. He smiled. When it's this early in the morning, the upper crusts, raisin scones, are still warm from the oven. I had an idea that you might not make lunch. Totally forgot about it, I said, noting the steam escaping from the styrofoam cups in their holders. I reached for one of them. You supplied the beverages too. It looks good. The dregs of tea at the bottom of the cups were cold, and the scones were long gone by the time I finished telling Peter about my childhood, and how the search for my mother had led to launching the consulting detective. Don't you feel like this searching for mom is useless? He asked, munching on the last few crumbs of pastry. I mean, there's so much mystery surrounding your mother's family. I've dreamed of hugging my mother every day of my life, I said, brushing the last bits of flour from my hands onto a napkin Peter had provided. Frustration is a small price to pay. He glanced over at me tentatively. Shouldn't you be devoting more time then to hunting down leads? I mean, you said that you're returning to the United States soon. I just think this is your chance to talk to people before you revert to your life back home. That's the catch, I replied, exhaling deeply to release my momentary impatience. Finding people who might have known her or her family. Record and document keeping is more of an oral history than a written one in Ireland, but I'm persistent, and my return to the States is flexible. I don't have relationships which need nurturing. I paused and then added, at least right now. Doesn't your company require you to run it? It's fine. I'm the one who's at loose ends, not being able to walk into my office and get into my world of data. I shook a look at the I shot a look at the iPhone nestled in its case and clipped to my purse, even though it didn't really work on this side of the pond. Sometimes when I'm on the prowl for old furniture, Peter went on, I write about it in my newsletter, and often someone will contact me with a lead. Have you tried any of the online database newsletters or chat rooms? Incessantly, but with no result, I said. Although I've been successful with searches for other people, I located someone's cousin on a surname community board. The woman just happened to have posted there, and one of my software programs found the reference. Picturing the family reunion that my client likely enjoyed afterward, I stifled a tear. As Peter turned onto one of the quays along the Liffey River, he reached over and took hold of my hand. Well, please let me know if I can help, he said gently. He parked as close as he could get to Dublin Castle. He planned on taking the guided tour to look at some of the antiques, then meet up with his client for lunch. We agreed to rendezvous at Bewley's Cafe, one of Dublin's oldest landmarks in the heart of Grafton Street, serving up the best coffee and chocolates imaginable at 4 p.m. I hadn't told Peter that I intended to visit the General Register office after my interview at Tranquility House. I remember the negative responses I'd received when I'd called and written the office. No, we don't research family history. No, we don't have an online index. Sorry, but it's first come, first served if you wish to visit the research room. So, needless to say, I longed to make an in person plea and go through the files myself. The brochure for Tranquility House listed a Houston Street address. A guard near the castle gates provided directions, recommending a cab after he explained that it was a 30-minute walk. Impatient for action, I opted for the walk. I picked up speed, mingling with the sea of bobbing heads on the crowded sidewalks as people hurried along, reminding me of New York's Fifth Avenue. At that moment, a wave of homesickness pummeled into me. How long would it be before I returned to New Jersey? To my dog, my house, and my friends? Soon, I promised myself, knowing it was a promise I might not keep. Tranquility House turned out to be a 3-story brick structure. True to Dublin's Georgian door fashion, it sported a green portal. I rang the bell and waited for a response. A tall, blonde woman escorted me into a spacious office. "Would you like anything to drink, Miss O'Brien?" she asked. "No, thank you. Is Mrs. Burns expecting me?" "Yes, she'll be here in a few minutes. Please make yourself comfortable." She didn't close the door when she left the room, which prohibited me from snooping. Instead, I crossed over to the picture window and watched the double-decker buses transporting people to and from the Houston station. 10 minutes later, Mary Alice Burns swept into the room. She wore a fuchsia-colored suit with gold accessories. Black hair was molded into a page boy that she wore like a helmet. She marched toward me with her hand outstretched. Her handshake was firm and quick. "I hope you weren't waiting too long, Miss O'Brien. I'm burning the candle at both ends today. Please, sit down." She strode around her desk and sat down as she indicated a chair to me. I decided to come to the point immediately. "Miss Burns, I'm investigating Matthew Sumner's death." I paused to allow for her reaction. When there was none, I continued. "I have information that he met with you shortly before his death. I want to know what you discussed." I eased back in my chair and waited. "Matthew's sister called me, so I know what she's asked you to do," she replied. "I must say that I don't envy you your job. Cases like these are never resolved for the people who are left behind." Bridget Sumner is experiencing the denial stage of the grief process. It's very similar to what people with dependencies and their families live through. But time heals all, and she'll see that eventually. Mary Alice paused to use her long manicured fingers to tap the files on her desk into a straight line. "Of course, I'll tell you about the meeting, although there isn't much to report. Matthew required information about our drug rehab program, specifically the resident recovery process. I gave it to him and he left. It's as simple as that." "Did he indicate why he needed the information? Did he say that it was for him?" "He didn't reveal who the candidate was, if that's what you mean, which is normal in situations where there's drug dependency. People don't want to admit their vulnerabilities or those of their family during the early steps toward intervention. He was adamant about our ability to protect residents' identities. He asked questions about access to the program's participants, visitors' rights, and so on." She pushed the files around until they needed to be straightened again. "He also wanted to know what the next step opening for a resident would be." "What did you tell him?" I asked. I was curious to know the timing and how it might connect to his death. Mary Alice replied, "September. Several of our current residents transitioned from here back to their home environment that month. Matthew became anxious, almost panicked when he heard this. He pressured me to do something about finding space sooner." "Was that a typical response in a case like this?" I asked. "Yes and no." Tilting her head toward the file folders, she explained. "Most often families want to get the process started. They worry about what might happen to the candidate before he or she enters the program. In comparison to the urgency I usually deal with on behalf of families in this situation, Matthew's reaction was explosive. He said that money was no object. I tried to explain that it was more than money, that there's quite a bit of preparation involved. When he finally realized that it was September or nothing, he stormed out, slamming the door. His behavior was rude and inappropriate. She sat back then, waiting for me to speak. "Do you think he was the candidate?" I asked. She leaned forward and gazed directly into my eyes. "I'm not a licensed professional therapist and counselor. I wouldn't think of venturing any opinion of that nature without having conducted an investigation and analysis of the client first. Matthew didn't give me that opportunity." Then she propelled herself away from her desk. "I don't have any more to tell you, Miss O'Brien. If you don't mind, I have a practice to run." She strode around the desk and motioned me to precede her through the door. Back outside, I replayed the meeting in my head and considered the implications. Our discussion confirmed that Matthew's recent activities before his death were related to drugs. What exactly the relationship was, I didn't know yet, but the timing of his demise, coming on the heels of his visit to Dublin, solidified my belief that his death had not been an accidental stumble from a cliff. I glanced at my watch. 2 hours remained before I was scheduled to meet Peter. Plenty of time to get to the General Register office. I tugged a city street map out of my jacket pocket and located the address on Lombard Street. If I power walked, I'd arrive in 20 minutes. So sprinting down the steps of Tranquility House, I broke out into a heel-to-toe lilt across the intersection of Houston and Gloucester streets.